In the southern part of Dublin, in the Mountainy Park area, there stood an ordinary house. It was home to a complex, overcrowded household. Former spouses, their son Richard, their daughter with her children, and her partner. The house itself was modest, yet it always accommodated no fewer than 10 people. In such cramped conditions, everyday problems quickly escalated into ongoing conflicts and constant tension. PatriciaOConnor was a retired woman who had spent her life working as a nurse in the city hospital. She was strict, reserved, and deeply weary of life. The house she lived in had been purchased with her own savings, and here she had raised her children and spent most of her life. After divorcing her husband, Augustine Connor, Patricia moved out for a while. She entered a new relationship and lived independently, but eventually returned. Her new relationship had failed, and she had no alternative housing. Her ex-husband allowed her to move back in. Though no longer a couple, they shared the same roof like neighbors. Communication was minimal, but they shared the living space. Augustine, known to everyone as Gas, was calm and detached. He rarely participated in household matters, avoided conflicts, and tried to stay out of everyone's way. His indifference satisfied some cohabitants, but it only worsened the household atmosphere. Patricia's relationship with her daughter, Louise, was tense. Louise lived in the house with her 5 children from different fathers. She didn't work, rarely helped with chores, and frequently clashed with her mother. One of her daughters, Stephanie, was a quiet teenager who kept to herself. The younger children were not involved in conflicts, but they lived amid the same chaotic environment. Also living in the house was Ciarán Green, Louise's current partner. He had no job, behaved irritably, and was openly rude. Disagreements with Patricia were frequent. He disregarded her rules, refused to help with household tasks, and earned her distrust. From the beginning, their relationship had been cold. Additionally, Keith Johnston, Louise's former partner and father of her 2 eldest children, appeared in the house periodically. He didn't live there permanently, yet he visited often. His role in the family seemed minor at first, but it later became clear that he knew much more than anyone had assumed. Thus, in one small house lived former spouses, their adult son, their adult daughter, with 5 grandchildren, the daughter's partner, and a former son-in-law. Despite her age, Patricia continued to maintain order, cooking, cleaning, and managing all household responsibilities. The rest of the adults took her efforts for granted and rarely assisted. Neither Gas, Louise, nor Ciarán assumed responsibility. The house had become cramped, noisy, and chaotic. Gradually, Patricia began to feel she was losing control. No one listened to her, her requests were ignored, and any remark she made was met with irritation. She felt increasingly unnecessary in the house she had built and maintained for decades. Though unspoken, this sense of being sidelined became the first warning signal. In this home, nobody wanted to change anything, yet no one was willing to tolerate anyone else's authority. Patricia never demanded anything excessive. She simply asked that people clean up after themselves, avoid leaving dirty dishes, keep their belongings tidy, and follow a basic routine. In response, she encountered silence, disregard, and mild irritation. None of the adults took her instructions seriously, and her requests sounded like bothersome complaints rather than rules to obey. Ciarán openly avoided conversations, pretending not to hear Patricia even when addressed directly. Louise preferred not to intervene. When household tensions escalated, she either withdrew into herself or accused her mother of being overly strict. There was no support from anyone. The house was in disarray, yet Patricia was the only one striving to restore order. She maintained the daily routine, rising first, preparing breakfast, doing laundry, tending the yard. Others slept late, left messes, and ignored her reminders. Even the children, though small, understood that rules in this household were ineffective. The family no longer functioned as a cohesive unit. Each person lived according to their own schedule, ignoring common discussions. Emotional and domestic bonds had virtually vanished. What had once been a home bringing people together had become a confined space where inhabitants shared square footage but not responsibility. The 27th of May, 2017, passed like any other day. No loud arguments, no emergency calls, no recorded shouting. Yet, it was the day Patricia O. Connor stopped leaving the house, stopped answering calls, and failed to appear in any of her usual locations. Her disappearance initially did not alarm her relatives. The first to openly address the situation was Patricia's sister, Valeria. A few days later, while walking her dog near the Connor residence, she met Gas. In conversation, he claimed Patricia had left the house with a suitcase on the evening of May 27 and never returned. According to him, Kierong and Richard had already filed a police report. Valeria was puzzled. She knew her sister well and understood that such a sudden departure was uncharacteristic. Patricia had never abandoned her grandchildren or left without informing her family. The Irish police, upon receiving the report, initiated standard procedures, checking hospitals, hotels, shelters. All leads proved fruitless. Patricia's bank card remained unused. No phone calls had been made. There were no traces of her movements after the reported departure. Investigators asked Louise for a photograph to begin a public search. This marked the first moment Patricia's disappearance became known outside the house. Until then, only her closest relatives were aware. The situation seemed odd. Someone had vanished, yet the household did not appear concerned. Relatives in other parts of Ireland began acting independently, contacting one another, reaching out to acquaintances, and appealing to the media. Still, no information emerged regarding Patricia's whereabouts. Nearly a week passed. The house from which Patricia supposedly left remained unexamined. There were no signs of violence, no reports of conflict or threats. Based on available data, formally, there was no reason to suspect foul play. Yet there were also no indications of voluntary departure. Investigators began questioning the reliability of the family's account. There was no exact time of departure, no witnesses confirming Patricia's presence outside the house that day. Even the claim that she took a suitcase lacked video footage or eyewitness testimony. Early investigative stages were hindered by missing facts and minimal cooperation from the closest relatives. What initially appeared as a strange disappearance of an elderly woman began to take on a more sinister dimension. Behind outward passivity, something deeper was concealed. Days after Patricia's disappearance, police reviewed footage from a neighboring property. On May 27, a woman carrying a suitcase left the house and returned half an hour later. At first, it seemed ordinary, but the person was Patricia's granddaughter, Stephanie, dressed in her grandmother's clothes. Her cautious movements suggested premeditation. The staged departure aimed to mislead police and delay investigation. Stephanie's return became key evidence, proving coordinated action by household members. Patricia had not left the house. Family members used her phone to send messages, creating the illusion she was traveling. Kierong claimed Patricia had left. Louise provided a photograph supporting the story. Gas repeated it. None saw Patricia on that day. Collective silence and agreement on the false narrative characterized the household. Discrepancies emerged. Louise cited tensions but no incidents. Gas said she intended to leave without specifying a destination. Patricia's belongings remained untouched, contradicting the story. Neighbors saw no taxis, buses, or witnesses. On the 10th of June 2017, a family in County Wicklow discovered human remains in tall grass. Police cordoned the area and involved army and aerial support. Multiple body fragments were found along a 25-kilometer route. Forensic analysis identified Patricia over 60. Lack of documents complicated identification. Fragments were bagged, showing deliberate preservation. Experts concluded dismemberment occurred within 24 hours, indicating premeditation. On June 12, Kierong Green went to police, claiming responsibility. He described a confrontation, head injury, and panic, moving, burying, exhuming, dismembering, and dispersing the body alone. Forensic evidence contradicted him. Multiple skull injuries, power tool marks, and dismemberment required planning. Purchases by Kierong and Keith Johnston of saws, bags, chemicals, and gloves confirmed premeditation. All household residents were questioned. Louise changed testimony, claiming ignorance. Richard, Patricia's son, contradicted her, confirming she never left, and the suitcase used in staging was in his father's room. The The case showed coordinated concealment by multiple family members. Trial began the 14th of January 2020. 5 defendants faced charges: Kieran Green, Louise Connor, Stephanie Connor, Keith Johnston, Augustin Connor. Prosecution presented evidence of murder, dismemberment, transportation, and staged disappearance. On the 23rd of January 2020, verdicts: Kieran life with parole eligibility, 2,040. Stephanie, 18 months. Louise, 2 years, 10 months. Keith, 2 years, 10 months. Augustin, 18 months. Patricia was buried privately. Her estate went to Augustin, who sold the house, excluding Louise. The case concluded legally, but left the question of family betrayal unanswered.